Hey there, welcome to another hiker homily. And I have to say, for those of you who are not into through hiking or the PCT, this might be a video that you're not interested in. But maybe you'll have some kind of, let's see what those crazy through hikers are doing type of interest. I don't know. But I apologize. But it is a topic I wanted to talk about, because boy, it gets a lot of folks rustled and things, and we're going to be talking about the PCTA permit system. Oh boy, I know. I can see some of you, I can just hear some of you who are actual through hikers getting crazy out there already. One way or the other. You either think it's this amazing set of tablets blazed in stone from a god, or it's the most ridiculous, useless government trying to hold me down type of thing. As usual, I'm kind of in the middle of the road on it. I absolutely see the purpose of the PCTA permit system. It definitely serves some good. Is it a perfect system that doesn't need any kind of tweaking? Absolutely not. And that's what we're going to talk about. Unfortunately, part of the problem is the PCTA, at least in their responses online most of the time, seem to really not be open to any suggestions. And if there's a reason for that, they've never said so. So it just seems like they're being obstinate about certain things. Now, if they're not open to it because they've been told, and we're going to get into this a little bit, by the U.S. government, this is what you have to do, that's all you can do, okay. Well, then the PCTA needs to come up front and say that. Hey folks, we know you're saying all these things would improve the permit system, but we can't do it. If you want us to do those things, contact the Department of the Interior. Okay? Instead, they're just like, no. Or they ban people from their Facebook sites, or all kinds of other things when they say things that they don't like. And that's not a good face for the PCT, not at all. I'm telling you right now. They may not even like this video at all, and that's okay. They don't have to like it, because I don't fucking work for them. Ooh, I said a no word. So, the first thing I want to say about the PCTA permits is they came about because there was a problem. And that problem was this beautiful trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, was getting hammered by hundreds of people a day. Little set camp areas, and I put that in quotes because they're not really camp areas, they just happen to be flat spots along the trail that can fit 2 or 3 tents on them. We're getting 15 to 20 people a day stacked up on them. And not all those people gave a crap about leave no trace, or even if they did, maybe they didn't do it quite right. All kinds of issues. So parts of the trail were absolutely getting trashed. And they still are to this day. There are still parts of the trail that are getting trashed. And so the permit system was put into place, I think. I have no official insider word. But I think as an agreement between the PCTA and the Department of the Interior, who is actually in charge of the PCT for the most part. We'll get into that again. Because the alternative was to do things like the National Park Service does at Half Dome or Whitney or John Muir Trail, where you get a lottery permit system or first come first serve permit system, pay a little fee, and then you get to go to such and such only on this date. This is it. So in order to not have that situation happen, the PCTA agreed to do a permit system with the permission of the National Park Service, National Forestry Service. And we're going to get into why in a minute. So, although they don't really hide this, but it's also not necessarily clear, because a lot of folks like to assume things. Let's be clear about one thing. The PCTA is a great organization, but it is a private organization. Their authority ends at supporting the trail, getting PR out there for the trail, and things like that. They, for the most part, for almost the entirety of the trail, have no actual authority on the trail itself. So one thing I want to say is, if you are approached on the trail by someone who claims, because there are people out there who do this kind of thing for various reasons, claims they are a PCTA employee, and they tell you to get your permit out, there's absolutely no reason why you have to follow any of their directions. They have absolutely no authority. They are there to protect that trail. They are there to, they organize the work crews that help maintain the trail in a fantastic way for the areas that the Park Service doesn't do it and things. But the vast majority of the PCT, for those of you who don't know it, the actual authority is the National Park Service, the National Forestry Service, and in some nooks and crannies, you have some private corridors where the PCT is allowed to go through it. Or it's Bureau of Land Management. It's just open land that the government kind of like has but doesn't do anything with. The PCTA is a private nonprofit organization who has been given permission by the National Park Service and the Forestry Service to issue a long distance permit for the whole trail. And that permit's fantastic because what that does is it's a convenience thing. Okay? Instead of having to go to every ranger station in charge of and there are quite a few of them, every single national park the trail goes through, every state park the trail goes through, regional park, every bit of wilderness or national forestry land, you would have to go to these individual sections that are in charge of those sections and get a backcountry permit or a wilderness permit, things like that. Well, the PCTA permit, you don't have to do that. You get one permit. It's good for the whole trail. So there's your convenience. The thing is, that doesn't change the fact that the enforcement of the rules on the trail, when you can make fires, where you can camp, all that kind of thing, is still in the hands of the National Forestry Service, the National Park Service, the state parks, wherever the trail happens to be going through. They're the ones who still have authority. The PCTA can revoke their permit, but they can't actually kick people off the trail. They have no authority for that, and they have no real authority to check things. So if you get people out there pretending to be PCTA employees checking permits and things, even if you get real PCTA employees doing that, and I've never heard of real ones doing it, they're overstepping their bounds, or they're frauds. It's one of the two. They're either faking it and they're not employees at all. They're just, for whatever reason, trying to mess with people. Or they're way overstepping their bounds. They can't do that. Park rangers, forestry service employees, those are the ones who can check permits. And they should be checking permits. And they do. They're out there doing it. Okay, and again, I'm not insulting the PCTA, and I'm not saying the permit system is bad. I'm just putting it in the proper perspective of what it is. It is a convenient permit that lets you do the whole trail without having to get individual permits for every single little section you go through. That's fantastic. So, for those of you who can do the math, you will know that you can walk. A lot of people don't realize this. You can do the PCT without a PCTA permit. It just means you have to go to all the individual little ranger stations and get your backcountry permit for each one. So those of you who are trying to get a permit and you weren't able to, and you think that means your dreams of the trail are over, no, not necessarily. You may have to go through some different steps, because some of those little sections let you get the permit online. Some say, nope, you got to show up. You got to be in front of the ranger, sign the permit, take it with you. So, there's some convenience there for the PCTA permit. But it is not a must to do the PCTA, to do the PCT. It just isn't. So the PCTA doesn't like to advertise that. I understand why. I get it. But it is a fact. I'm not lying. You can do the PCT without a PCTA permit. You do need some permits. It doesn't have to be theirs. And theirs is the most convenient. Okay, so I blattered on long enough about that part. I think it's important to say, though, even though the PCTA doesn't like people saying it. Oh well, I'm going to say a few things, I think, in this video that, as far as I know, the PCTA doesn't like people to say, but oh well. Because I'm not saying go against the permit system. If you can get a PCTA permit, it is the best way to do the PCT. Hands down. Because once you've got that permit, you don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to go to each individual ranger station. You're covered for the whole thing. Mexico to Canada, you're ready to go. As long as you are following the rules on the permit. And most of those rules are fairly common sense, and they're very light rules. And they're basically the same rules that you would have to follow anyway if you got the backcountry permit rules. They're not really any different. It's just that this is a convenient one for the whole thing. So, one of the big flaws that I've noticed is the PCTA does not take into account in any way, shape, or form couples. With the exception of if you are going to hike with a minor, if I'm bringing my son on the trail, or someone else wants to hike with their daughter and they are children, they are not adults yet, minors. When the adult signs up to get the permit, they can state that they are bringing a minor with them. And then the adult's permit is also the minor's permit. So that's a good system. I'm glad they have that in place. That's fantastic. Very important. But when it comes to, say, a married couple who want to do the trail together, two best friends who want to do the trail together, any kind of couple situation, the PCTA, apparently, according to their responses, do not give a crap about those kinds of hikers. They just don't care. That might sound mean, and I'm sure they're going to say, that's not true at all. Okay, fine. But that's the face they have shown online. Anytime anybody brings that up, they absolutely hammer it down as if they do not give a crap. So if it's not true at all, they need to start showing that it's not true at all. Maybe do something about it. And that's what I'm going to talk about for the rest of the video. Some humble suggestions that I have made online and have been ignored, and that I've heard others make online or agree with, okay? So suggestion number one, just like they do with the minors, you could have a special couple situation, okay? Where if my wife and I want to do the PCT together, the PCT together, and we both get in the queue, right now, the way it stands, I could get queue number 73, and she could get queue number 4084, even though we got online about the same time. Because that's just the way this freaking system works. And there's just no way. I've seen people post online that they want to hike with their wife, they want to hike with their adult daughter or son, they want to hike with their best friend, their fiance, whatever, they're a couple, any kind of couple, and they got start dates that are weeks apart. I'm not talking a couple of days that you can kind of make up for. Weeks apart. And when they contact the PCTA, basically their response is, you have to follow what your permit says, or it could be revoked. That's the response from the PCTA, which in plain English means don't care. Don't care. Your permits are weeks apart, so start weeks apart. The fact that you want to hike together makes no difference to the PCTA. They don't care. Again, they may want to say, oh, that sounds brash. No, we care. No, baloney, you don't. Because if people contacted you, you would tell them something different if you cared. You wouldn't just tell them, too bad, follow your permit. No. So, if they would set up a system kind of like they do with a adult hiking with a minor, If I wanted to hike with my wife, we can both state that we want to, it's going to take some code writing. You're going to have to write a new subroutine into the program that they use. That, I am trying to hike with so-and-so. And so they move us to the queue together, even if it's backwards. Even if I got queue number 78 and she got queue number 2000, if they moved me to 2001 or 2000B and make her 2000A, fine. I would accept that, because for me, the important part is I'm going to be hiking with the person I want to hike with. I'm not worrying as much about my start date. Because let's be frank about it, even if you're a couple that's out there, you need to set your priorities. What is more important, the start date or actually hiking with your partner? You're going to have to pick one, because you're not going to get them both. So yeah, you want to bump me backwards to, if she gets, or I get the higher number, they bump her backwards, whatever. As long as we're together and we can then pick our day together. Hey, problem solved. Now that's going to take a little work. I'm sure they're going to have to write a whole program subroutine to get that to work and things. Or they can just do it like, instead of having a checkbox for I'm hiking with a minor, I am hiking with my spouse. I'm hiking with my partner. Okay, put that on the thing. And there it is. Other thing they can do, number 2 suggestion, is you set aside during the non-peak times. The peak time is really like April. Everybody wants to get that, especially mid-April. They want to get that April date. Oh. Okay, so early March and late May, you set aside special days that have a certain amount of permits set aside specifically for couples. Okay? Not a perfect solution, but it might help. Okay, I have to start earlier than I maybe anticipated. I have to start in March. It's not always a bad thing, to tell you the truth. But I'm starting with my partner. Or I have to start later. I have to start late April, early May. But I'm with my partner. Okay. So there's a way to do it. Now the third suggestion is one of the most simple ones. And I have no clue why the PCTA will not allow it at this point. Because they could easily set it up with a minimum of personnel needed. They wouldn't really need to have anybody on this, because they could set it up for a computer to do it. But say within a certain amount of time of your start date. If you have a start date of April 22nd, let's say, at least a week or maybe 2 weeks before that date, up to the 2-week point, you are able to trade your start date with another person that has a start date of a different thing. Because that would solve a lot of problems. I see that a whole bunch. That people have actually said that online. I want to hike with so-and-so. Their start date is the 24th. Oh, well, I'm starting on the 23rd, but I don't have to. I'm not on a schedule. I wish I could give you my permit, and you could start about the same time, within a couple of days of each other. And I'd start where you're starting, which is in the beginning of May. No big deal. Problem solved. But unfortunately, it's not a problem the PCTA wants to solve, I guess. Because they could do that. Allow swapping. And that doesn't affect the permit system in any way, shape, or form. If the permit system is really about numbers, really about saving the trail, like the PCTA says it is, then the permit swapping doesn't change that at all, because it's 1 for 1. One person who has a start date on this date is swapping with another person who has a start date on this date, so they both swap. The number of people starting on both those days has not changed. Not in any way, shape, or form. If 50 people were supposed to start on this one and 50 on this one, you still have that number. Just because the names have changed, the actual numbers are the same, so there's no reason why it wouldn't be allowed. If the permit system was really about the numbers. If the permit system isn't about the numbers, that would be the only reason I could think that they would disallow trading like that. Because again, they can talk about how, we need to hire this many people. No, baloney. You could do that easily with the permit system. If I can get on right now like I can and check the status of my permit and look at all the dates and blah, blah, blah. I can get on with the bare minimum change to a program and say, so-and-so wants to swap with me. That person has clicked agree. I click agree. Our dates are swapped. It's simple. That's a simple program to do. They could do it. It could be done. I see other systems doing that kind of thing all the time. So that would be a huge help for all kinds of people, even beyond the whole thing about folks who do couple hiking or something like that. There's just a lot of people who have jobs that I can't get out of my job until this time. And so a March such and such start date just doesn't work for me. I can't do it because I can't leave my job for that long. They'll give me the summer off, but they're not going to give me that much time off. I can't do it. So my PCT permit is useless. I can't follow it. If they could swap for a later date, problem solved. Because there's folks out there like me. Doesn't matter what day I start. I'm retired. I have time. I can start almost any day and just kind of adjust my personal schedule for that. I can do it. I don't have to worry about work and things like that. I'd be happy to trade with somebody if they needed a date that I got. So for some reason, the PCTA won't allow that kind of trading. I have a feeling that the excuse they would use would be, oh, it's too labor intensive. That's a bunch of baloney. It does not have to be labor intensive. A computer system can do that quite easily. And especially if you make it, you can't swap like at the last minute. Both people have to be before 2 weeks or, something like that. So that's my rant on that, because it's frustrating to see folks, because I was a person who a long time, my wife doesn't do as much backpacking anymore. She still loves kayaking, she loves running and stuff like that, but she doesn't do as much hiking and backpacking. She does some, but not a lot. But when we were younger, we used to do it all the time. And back then, if we were able to do the PCT, well, back then we'd have to worry about it. There were no permit systems. We could have done it whenever we wanted. But now, if we were still both avid hikers and we wanted to do it together, it would be almost impossible. It would be almost impossible. Even if we both logged on with multiple devices at the same time, we would get starting times weeks apart, and the PCTA would just tell us, oh, well, follow your permit or we'll revoke it. So that's crazy. That's crazy. But that's it for there. Agree, disagree? Do you hate the permit system? Do you love the permit system? Let's hear about it. Comments down below. Instagram, any of that kind of thing. Or you can get a hold of me, as always, at hikingforhealthca@gmail.com. And that's a hiker homily that leaned toward a rant for this time. And we'll catch you next time.